Takes a little bit to get going, but come on, play. Sorry, talking to myself. Nifty needle. This is so cool. New technology these days. I tell you. Whatever. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Cheese Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Rego. And tonight I'm joined by Sproles, the Sproles, however way you want to look at it, on Twitter. And tonight we're going to be discussing the Packers. I believe the last time I talked to the Sproles was it before preseason?
Yep.
Now we're going to discuss up until the bye, so we're 9 weeks into the season.
Yep.
Ups and downs, studs and duds. Just Packers. What we've seen so far, thoughts, and then at the end of the segment, I'll go with the midseason awards and see what he thinks and see what I think, and we'll go from there. So, what's going on, buddy? How you been?
Hey, I've been good. It's interesting. I've been following some of your guests. You got a great program, and I'm thrilled to be an honor to be on today, especially since we're 6-3 at the bye, and we can kind of take a nice deep breath now, and no game tomorrow, which is kind of nice, and get ready for the home stretch. It'll be a challenging one, but I think we're ready.
Right. This time last year we were 3-6. We're 6-3 now. So what are your thoughts and how to perform?
Yeah, it's been up and down, right? So we we started off with high hopes, and of course the terrible game in Brazil, and Jordan, gets his knee hurt, and you don't know at that moment, the end of that game, you don't know, this season could have just gone like completely done. And so he was able to come back, and fortunately we had Malik Willis that had just joined the team right before that game, right? So he didn't know what to expect, but we're able to squeak out a couple of wins and kind of get back into things. And then Jordan comes back and we run into the Vikings. So, what the good news is, we're 6-3. And like you said, that's the flip side of last year when we were 3-6. The bad news is we lost our 2 division games, at home. So, we've got another 4 division games, but we only have one of those that's going to be at home. So that's going to be the challenge. We've got to perform well, and the division has been really tough so far. So it's going to be challenging. So I think everything's out there. Whatever we want to accomplish as a team, I think is still in play. We can accomplish any of the goals that we have set out for ourselves, but we're going to have to play better, especially in the divisional games as we get into the home stretch here.
Right. The only thing that I mean, I look at we lost to the Vikings in the at home. We did the same thing last year. We went in the Minnesota. We beat the Lions last year at Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for some reason that's been our luck the last couple of years. I think we'll do the same this year, and we're gonna blank the Bears just because it's the Bears. I think I was predicting at the start of the season we'd go 12-5, maybe 11-6, maybe that like 11-13 wins, depending on the schedule and how things worked out, and you know, I mean that was a crazy move. But you think back to LaFleur's before he came here, he was in Tennessee, so he kind of knew something about Malik Willis and whatnot, and it's just crazy how he could come in on a week's notice and they put in a game plan for him, and he went 2-0. That's crazy.
Right.
And the thing that I always stress about that is, so teams that have watched his tape knew that he wasn't maybe really a good passer, not good in the pocket. We were our only option was to be like a run heavy team. So they almost want to run, and we ran all the time, and they couldn't stop the run.
Mm-hmm.
So that kudos to our offensive line, to everyone believing in LaFleur, believing in. So I think that the Packers have a good young core coming out of the bye week, and they're gonna make some noise. I've said that I would rather go into the playoffs kind of under the radar as like a team like in 2010 where I don't want to be like the last game of the year. These teams have to win. This team has to lose.
Right.
We got to win to make it in. I don't want to be that last second wildcard team, but I want to make it into the playoffs as like a lower seed, just because you come into the higher seed, you get the big eagle, big head, and I think sometimes you look ahead to the game after you're playing, and when the final clock winds down, you lost the game because you're thinking ahead. Mm-hmm. So I just think you just want to go in there and surprise people,
Yeah. Well, it's going to be challenging because we've got to play. Like I said, we've got to play Detroit in Detroit, and it looks like they're in good shape. Minnesota's in good shape too, and I was looking at their schedule, and so we could actually finish third in the division. And it's been done before with three teams in one division making the playoffs, but like you said, it's going to be tough. We're going to have to, if we end up making it, we'll probably have to play at least one of those two teams again on the road. So yeah, like I said, everything's out there. We can still accomplish everything we want to, but it's not going to be easy, So I think the key thing is last year, like you said, we were 3-6, but the team really clicked in the home stretch and things started really falling into place. So I think that's going to be the key piece, going forward. It's funny. Just before we logged on this tonight, I like to play music. That's my big thing. So I have this playlist. 500 songs. I just crossed over 500. I start January 1, and as I hear songs and I like them, I load them into the playlist. So we're on to 500, and I just hit shuffle on the playlist, and what came up with a very obscure song I haven't heard a lot, but it's by an artist named Nika Costa called "It's Just Love." And I thought, oh, that's it, right? That's the title for our deal tonight, because I think we go as far as Jordan Love takes us. Like you said, Malik Willis, that's great, but I think if you give teams enough film, and like you said, you can't win being a one-dimensional team. You can't just run. You even saw that against Jacksonville, right? I mean, the play that got us to win was the sweet pass to Reed. So that's the thing. I think Malik has done phenomenal. This coaching staff has done phenomenal, but this team goes as far as Jordan Love takes him. And if he's healthy, hopefully, we should be ahead of last year because he's that much more experienced. His receivers are that much more experienced. I mean, basically all the key weapons except for Josh Jacobs, who were on the team a year ago, right? So they should have that chemistry going. And
Right.
and so that basically, I think we lost one guy from that team, and that was John Runyon at guard. So you'd like to think that hopefully we're at least as good, if not better, than we were last year, and hopefully better because the guys are younger, are young, but they've had that experience, and they had the experience of the playoff run and going to Dallas and going to San Francisco, and even though we lost San Francisco, we gave them a heck of a run, and that was a team that ended up
Right.
going to the Super Bowl. So, we were leading them in the fourth quarter of that game. So, you like to think that we've got, what it takes to go on a good run. So we'll see.
Right. Now, with the way we played when Love was out and we had Willis, do you see the Packers put any packages in the offense from here at the end of the season where Willis would come in for Love for a play or two, maybe a quarter, and maybe try to get some extra running yards or rushing yards, some surprise plays?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's interesting that you bring that up. I was not the only one. There were a number of us that were, at the half, right after that pick six. It seemed to me that Jordan was not healthy, wasn't moving the way he usually moves. And, I thought that, especially with the wet field, the rain and all that, I don't know why LaFleur didn't put Willis in the second half. You know, I don't know, right? So I'm not a coach, so I can't, get inside their head. But if they wouldn't put Willis in for the second half of a game they were behind, what was it, 24-0, I think, at the half, or 24-6 or something like that. If they wouldn't put him in a situation like that, I don't think they would just play him just to play him, except unless
Right.
Love injured and compromised. For a couple reasons. I mean, I think you have to look at it and say they gave Jordan Love $200 million for the reason, right? They believe that he's the guy. And if you're the guy, you don't come out because you miss a couple of passes, or you don't come out to let some other guy come in and run some fancy plays. I think that, again, I go back and I think that Willis is a great backup. I hope we can retain him for a couple of years and have him as that backup for us. But Love is the guy, and I think we ride or die with Jordan Love. And unless he's not healthy, and in which case then you have to go with Willis. But I don't think it makes sense to change quarterbacks and bring some guy in for. A couple of teams have done that in the past, like with Tebow and things like that, or I can't think of some of the other teams that would. Oh, I know the Saints used to do that with the guy that was a Packer at one point.
Taysom
right?
Hill.
Yeah, Taysom Hill, right. They used to bring him in, and I always thought that was kind of goofy because you had Drew Brees, right? And it's like Drew Brees is a Hall of Fame quarterback. Just let Drew Brees play, right? So I that's my philosophy. Maybe you're right. Maybe LaFleur will come up with something in the bye week and have some packages in that kind of thing. But I'm not expecting it. I'm expecting it to be all Jordan Love, as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, same here. I just always thought that, hey, like you look back and you see what he was in, even when teams knew they were on the ball, they couldn't stop us. So having him in there, knowing that he had a couple passes that burnt opposing defenses, and then he had plays or they handed the ball off, they kind of still couldn't stop no matter what he did. So I don't know if maybe just give Love like a little breather to get him, some air back, and just for like one play, maybe every quarter or two, just to see what. I don't think it would hurt at all. It's not obviously we're committed to Jordan Love with the new contract and all, but I just want to see, the Malik Willis. You never know, in a year or two down the road, he could be a big trade asset for us if we were to want to acquire draft capital down the road.
Yeah. Well, I think we only have him for this year. I'm not. I
So,
don't know that, but I think he's. We don't
you got
have him on
3 years.
contract. What's that?
We have him for this year and next year.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's good then. Yeah, okay, that's cool. Yeah. The
Yeah.
one thing I did hear that could be kind of interesting, again, if you think about the way that the Saints used Breeze and Hills, they normally wouldn't take Breeze off the field, but they'd line him up, way out wide, and but what happens is when those guys are on the field together, you don't know who's going to end up being behind the center and who's going to be the decoy guy or whatever. So I could see them have a package with both of them on the field at the same time, just because the defense wouldn't know. And you could even at the last minute, you could even have them swap and have Willis go out and be the wide out and Love come back. And if teams had like loaded the box thinking it's going to be a run, now all of a sudden Love's back there and we're throwing deep to Watson. So that's the one thing I can see. But to pull Love off the field and put Willis in, I don't see that. I mean, I don't see that. So
Yeah. It's a thought. You never know.
yeah.
Things,
Well, like I said, maybe
when a million things went through your mind,
I don't know what I don't know LaFleur is planning, but we'll see.
Yeah. So, the biggest thing that I like offense, Jacobs, Love has been kind of iffy. He seems to have more of a Brett Favre mentality when it comes to throwing the ball. Offense, like I said, it's been Jacobs, Tucker Kraft, Jaden Reed, Dubs. Wicks, he's doing okay. He's dropping some balls. What are your thoughts so far on our offensive side of the ball so far in the first 9 games?
Well, I think Jacobs has absolutely been as advertised. He's a stud running back. Keep him healthy. That's the number one thing, right? Last year we lost Aaron Jones for a big part of the year, but when he came back and he was healthy, he was really dynamic. So I think we need that. The one area that I feel really good about, probably the best part of the roster, is the backup running backs this year. Emmanuel Wilson looks like a dude. He always seems to be, going forward and never seems to be like, dancing in the hole or anything like that. He seems to be a really decisive runner. And I really like what was seen from that Chris Brooks. I think it was the Houston game. He ended up being in there a lot at the end for pass protection. So, and he's shown he can catch the ball. He's shown he can run with it. So, from a running standpoint, I think we're good. I'm a little worried about the offensive line. I think that the 5 starters have played well. I've actually been pleased with Sean Ryan. I didn't think he was going to be as good, but I think he's been pretty solid in there. The tackles have been good. But I'm a little worried if we have to play a lot of Jordan Morgan. They've been trying to get him in there, 20 snaps or whatever. And then last week he had to play the whole game because Myers was out. I'm not sure he's ready for prime time, especially if he has to go against, a stud defensive tackle. And they got some of those guys coming up, that we have to play against. So I'm a little worried about that. On the weapons, the targets, the playmakers. Like you said, Reed has been. He's a coming star. He's absolutely. And Dubs, I think he had that little hiccup. I hope he's okay personally, but he's a guy I think that's an key part of that that offense. And then the other guys, Watson and Wicks, as you mentioned, I not as confident about. I think if you look at Wicks and you look at Devontae Adams, I see a lot of similarity. And last year, there were times when I thought Wicks was clearly the best wide receiver on the team. And this year, like you said, his performance has been lousy. Really, I mean, I wouldn't say just average. It's lousy. He's dropping a lot more than he should, but he does have that unique ability to get open, and that's what Adams had. So again, I'm hoping that they can kind of buckle under and figure out what the deal is and continue to improve. Adams was not, it was, I think, in his second or third year, a lot of people were talking about cutting him. And then, he ends up being an absolute superstar. So I think Wicks has that ability. We have to be patient, and he has to, develop. And then Tucker Kraft, Tucker Kraft is maybe the second best receiver on the team, next to Reed. I mean, he's is really impressive. So yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, I think we've got some good stuff going on offense. I am not at all worried about the offense. I think that individual players need to step up a little bit in certain areas, and Jordan Love's one of them, like you mentioned. But he's proven he can do it. Last year, I think in the second half, didn't he throw like 18 touchdowns and 1 interception? And I saw somebody today say, I don't know that he can replicate that. But if he gets close, if he throws 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, I don't think we care, right? I mean, that'd still be terrific. So that's kind of where I think, I don't think, people were linking to Favre. I really hope that, I know he has taken some chances. I think the play, like the pick 6 this past week, it was just a dumb play. He didn't even see the guy. It was just one of those weird, things. So and then a couple of his interceptions have been, off of somebody's hands. So he's not like having a terrible year. He's just in a area where, he's had a number of picks. I'm hoping that turnovers sometimes are cyclical. And so hopefully we'll go into a time frame where we're not having them, and he can, he's then going to shine,
Yeah, I think one thing that we haven't seen a lot so far this year because of injury is Marshawn Lloyd. I'm excited to see what he can do for the Packers. I think having that as have a 4 deep, decent running back combination would be awesome. I think Wicks is trying to do too much, and he's overthinking what he's doing. I think he'll get it right. I mentioned Jordan Love. It's because that meme that went around with one shoulder had Aaron Rodgers, one shoulder had Brett Favre. So it's like the best of the best and worst, whatever, of both quarterbacks that he came after. And even like Jordan Love, he had that one. It was a good throw. I forgot who it was to, but it was on the sideline, and the defender stepped in front of the ball and picked it off. It was a good throw, a better defensive play. But, they got the ball like on the 10-yard line. 2 plays later, McKinney picks it off. So, it's pretty much what he did is we did a punt, and they got the ball and whatever. And, it's only one way to learn is to experience it firsthand, Like, I coach a basketball team and 5th grade boys, and it's like being like a daycare provider. And but no, it's like like the Pierre basketball program, as 2 years ago they won state, right? So like it all starts from the bottom, youngest age, all the way up. Like they instill certain parts of the game. The high school coaching staff is involved 100% with the booster club and what they play through. So we like defense. Sometimes you can run drills and practice, but they get too like they just kind of whatever and turns into like playground basketball. So the best thing to do, in my eyes, if there's one team on one half of the court, one team on the other half practicing, like the last half hour where you just practice, you get live game bullets, and you learn from practice. Right. Same with playing football. Like I was coaching 5th and 6th grade football this last year, and sometimes the best practice you can get is this: do a live scrimmage against a team that you're not used to. Right. It's the only way to get better. And right. I think same with Jordan Love. Just go out there and see what you can and can't do. And I think another thing that is going under the radar too is Robert Saleh, having him coming in and teaching the offense what they should be looking at in the defense. which is like a really like impressive move by the Packers to bring him in to do that. I think this second half of the season we're going to light the world on fire.
Yeah. Yeah, you had a good point about two things. The Packers are not unlike your fifth grade football team in the sense that they're young, NFL wise. They're still the NFL's youngest team. Now that they traded away Preston, they got to be even younger than they were.
Yep.
So they're the youngest team, and you think about it, they don't really hit in preseason anymore. They didn't play most of their guys for. I think Jordan Love played just a handful. Like didn't he have one drive and it was an 80-yard bomb or whatever? So these guys they're not getting those, like you said, those live game reps during camp. And there is a difference, right? There's a difference between doing it half speed or thud or whatever when they're practicing, and the full speed action that happens during the game. So I think of all the teams, the younger teams like the Packers should be getting better. They should be improving with all this repetition. And I'm sure that's, for example, I'm sure that's why they're giving Jordan Morgan the opportunity. I don't think he's one of their best five right now, but they're looking at saying the only way this guy's going to develop is if we get him in here live game reps against the other team. And maybe that pick six play, I don't know if you saw that or not, but it was kind of Morgan's guy that flushed Love and made him kind of run to the side, run out to the side there. Because I don't know whether you saw the all 22. Some of these guys that we follow on Twitter, they show you this stuff. Reed was breaking wide open at about the 50. And if Morgan, if Love had a little bit of, Morgan did his job and blocked a little longer, and Love could have stayed in the pocket, that's may not have been a touchdown, but it would have been a huge play, right? And that's what we would have needed at that point, right before the half. But yeah, so I think, and the same thing with Wicks, and I think they have to give these guys, opportunities, and that's the only way they're going to get better is to play. So.
Yeah, I like to say practice makes perfect. I mean, I think sometimes they're trying too hard to do something that's simple, which maybe like over complicates things,
Right.
I mean, 2 of our 3 losses were, let's admit it. I mean, the field condition in Brazil was total crap. I don't know how the NFL can put their profit making soldiers out there to go to battle in a field like that. And then Green Bay, it's just like the one bad rainstorm that we've had all year long happened to be against one of the best teams in the NFL, if not the best team in the NFL. And a lot of our miscues against the Lions, you think about the Wicks drop touchdown, drop pass in the end zone, the missed field goal. I mean,
The Watson play. I mean, that ball. I get it. That was, that's a hard. The ball's way up there. It's windy. It's rainy.
It goes up and kind of comes straight.
I get that that's not easy, but you know what? I mean, that's why they pay Watson the money they do. I mean, he's got to judge that ball better. If he keeps running instead of stopping, or slowing down there, I think that ball hits him right in the hands and it's a touchdown. So yeah, You're right. We lost that game, and it really wasn't close, but it could have been close, and we could have won. There were enough plays out there, I think, that we could have won that game. And so the team, I think, has to. I think the buys come in at a good time because I think it causes you to look at yourself and say, Detroit's the best team in the NFC. I think clearly they're the best team in the NFC. And we had that game. We could have won that game, right? But we made the mistakes. So that's what we got to clean up. So
right. And I was going to say, we had 7 times in that game we were beyond going toward the end zone, beyond Detroit's 40-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we only came out with
14 points.
So, I mean, and like I said, we had the drop touchdown by Wicks, and we had the missed field goal. So that's the 10 points right there would have made it a tie game.
Yep.
Same kind of thing against the Vikings. We got our asses kicked in the first half, and we made adjustments in the second half, and we held them to 3 points in the second half, and we lost by 4 points, whatever it was.
Yep.
So I mean, you just got to try to make adjustments quicker if you can. You got to be able to see what's going on, and I just get a bad taste in my mouth when I think about the Lions, just because of the way it seems like every year they're getting. I mean, they've had no division titles, I think, except for last year,
Right.
in like 30 years. So I mean, congratulations, I guess whatever. But
Yep.
this is my because I think I think about things and going like being a coach in football and seeing kids getting hurt and everything, and then you watch like college football. And when I was younger, I used to be like, oh yeah, just going out there and just lay them off, just decleat them, do this. But you see like these players like in college and high school and taking hits to the helmet and hits to the head, and like Brian Branch deliberately dropping his shoulder, dropping his head down, and hitting the guy in the helmet. Then he gets ejected and he's going off, giving the double middle fingers. I mean, the NFL, if they don't get this under control, they're gonna have. I mean, I could see a class action lawsuit, like crippling the NFL, because I mean, you got you CTE, you think of Junior Seau, you think of remember that guy from the Chiefs that did whatever at the
Yep.
home. Then he went to the parking lot of the field. It was I mean, look at Brett Favre. Parkinson's. Is that dude from the hits he was taking? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it didn't help. And the NFL just handed out today. I saw Brian Branch like a $20,000 fine. Really? I mean, they've got to make the fines, I think, steeper to make it something that doesn't happen in the league. You know what I'm
Yep.
trying to say? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, thank goodness that Melton wasn't seriously hurt on that, because you're right. I mean, Branch, absolutely, and that's why it was. I think the NFL, that call didn't come from the field; it came from New York, and they looked at it and they saw that, like you said, yeah, he had several seconds he could have pulled up, right, and he could have changed, the way he was going in there, but he didn't. So it was the right decision to kick him out. I also think that they have to. One of the things I think is in college they have the targeting thing, right? So
Yep.
you could get kicked out not just for the game but for the first half next game too. And a guy like Branch, I mean, he's a really good player. So I think you have to send the message and you have to make those. I don't know about the fines. When I saw that, I thought it was a little light because they find Bosa about the same amount for wearing a stupid hat. So it's like I don't understand that, right? I don't get how they do all these things, and they find other guys money for something that wasn't even called in the game. So
Yep.
I think the fine for Branch, I get your point. I don't think that was enough, but clearly it was warranted that he be ejected. And you wonder, the thing I always wonder is if Melton had been seriously hurt, like what happened to Chris Olave or something like that, where he might have to be out the rest of the year. His career might be done. I don't know, but I look at maybe changing the way some of these when they kick players out, maybe they make them sit out a few games because, especially if Melton had to sit out because he got a concussion. If he had to sit out for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe Branch should have to sit out for 2 or 3 weeks. And
For sure.
so
And like I was also saying, sorry to cut you off, but it's if I if the refs in the field don't see something that happens and we see it on TV, so if we see it on TV, New York's seeing it on TV. And if that's the case and they don't stop it, I think they should have the power to stop the game, review what happened, and then make calls based off of what they saw.
right,
Because one of these days, someone's going to get hurt. What's it going to take? Someone to get carted off on a stretcher
right,
with no heartbeat because
yeah,
of something that happened in the under the watch of the NFL.
right.
I mean, they got to start taking care of I mean, they got players out there risking their lives to make the NFL a profit. And the NFL is just like, oh, you're just a number unless you're, this person or that person, like a Mahomes or it shouldn't even matter who they are. It's just it's a human life out there.
Right. Right. Yeah, they definitely have to make things safer, and I think they are trying to legislate out some of some of the hits and some and that kind of thing. And I think I mean, you want to have both played, so we know it's a bang bang thing, right? But at the same time, and you can't, there've been like that face mask against Sam Darnold that the Vikings fans were crying about. I mean, I look at that and I'm like, he wasn't trying to grab it. He was going to try to make a play, and his hand happened to, hit the face mask. And I don't know that that's a real egregious thing, but when you lead with your helmet, when you're, going at the other guy's head, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I think they've got to take out. And so I hope that they're working on that, because like you said, and I don't know, my kid's 27 now, so they're past that age. But if my kid was 10, like you said, fifth grade or whatever, I mean, I have to really think hard about whether I wanted them to play football. Because, like you said, and it's not what happens. It's not thinking that my kid's going to make the NFL, but it's thinking, what if it happens when they're in seventh or eighth or ninth grade, or in high school or whatever, and it could be debilitating for the rest of their life. So as a parent, I'm not saying I would or I wouldn't. It's just that I'm glad I don't have to make that call right now, because either way you make it,
Right.
you're kind of, I have some buddies whose kids play at the high school level, and obviously they take really good care. But I mean, I've been at games, I've been at high school games where guys out on the field, and they have to bring out the stretcher and stuff, and that's just terrible. I mean,
Yeah.
guys at the NFL level, that I think they know what they're getting into, they sign off on it. But when you're in high school, you're playing for the joy of the game. So it's yeah, it's difficult. So hopefully they'll improve I think the equipment's definitely improved. It's definitely improved from when I played, and I think I think the like you said, the rules and the way that they're officiating it now, I'm hoping is going to make it safer for those guys. So
Right, and two more things, and two more things that happened to Jordan Love that wasn't called that I think should be called. Then we'll get to the defensive side of the game for the Packers and our thoughts. But so this goes back to week 1 when he did get hurt, and you had that one guy holding on to his ankle, and like he saw him try to do like the front shoulder roll on it as he was getting hit up high. I think that should be illegal. B, I think it is illegal. And C, I had Eagles fans coming after me for about a week after I made that post on Twitter for saying this should be an illegal play. It's a dirty shot. I mean, I had almost 2 million impressions on my post about that. And then you saw the same thing last week against the Lions. The guy held on to his leg and twisted it, and Love fell backwards. I had like a little video clip of dirty hits by the Lions during that game. I think it was on YouTube or something like that, or maybe it was on Twitter. Anyway, and they go, well, he should have fell forward, not backwards. Are you kidding me?
yeah.
That all happened so fast. He probably felt it and just fell. He's not going to think, well, if I fall this way, I could hurt this part of my leg. Like you said, it's bang, bang plays, but at the base of it, legit at the base of the ground, there was the guy hanging on around Love's ankle and twisting it.
And that is illegal to go low. You're not supposed to go below the knee. That's what I think the original hit on that was on Carson Palmer. In the playoffs one year.
That or Tom Brady.
Yeah, same thing.
Tom Brady rule.
Right. And they have to change those, and they changed it now to say, you got a strike zone basically between the shoulders and the knees, just like in baseball, right? And that's where you're going to hit them. And like you said, the Eagle guy, and I remember the play in, the Detroit game too, where they were around the ankles, and yeah, you got to call that. And whatever. So,
I mean, and you got to look at it too. The NFL is not just some league; it's a business.
Right.
So if you have, say, Jordan Love out there just getting blasted and he's getting hurt, and the Packers paid him 200 and whatever million in the offseason.
Right.
Okay, well, who's going to? You're not going to make a profit off of him if he's not out there.
Right.
So you got to protect your profit. And it should go for players all
Well,
across.
and to your point, it diminishes the game if you have the backup in, right? If you have your star guys that can't play because they got hurt on a play that should have been a penalty, you're going to have a backup guy in. And even if that's Malik Willis and he's playing well, I think you still miss something. The fans, if you paid your whatever to go sit, in Lambeau, you're going there to see your guys. I remember one year, when we had first moved here, the first year we moved here, we were able to get tickets, fairly decent rate for a preseason game. And we show up and right before the game, it starts, like raining, like serious rain. Right. And of course, Brett Favre didn't play, Amon Green didn't play, Donald Driver didn't play, all the star guys. And I'm like, we paid, $100 and some a seat to go see, Scrubini guy that's not going to be there, on opening day. And that taught me a lesson about preseason, by the way, but that's another story. But I think that's the whole point, that, you have these guys that are the absolute best at their profession. I mean, did you see today that Dak now, I think, is going to make the rest of the season, and the Cowboys paid him a huge amount of money. So
didn't he get the highest paid contract? Because he was after Love, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and so so that's the thing. I mean, the product does not get better when your star quarterbacks can't play.
Well, and on top of that, you paid CeeDee Lamb too. So now CeeDee Lamb won't be getting the ball. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But
who's their backup? Like Trey Lance, or is it Cooper
Rush?
Yeah, it's like Cooper Rush. Are you kidding me?
It's the same thing in the NBA, though. I mean, say I'm in Green Bay. I'm 3 hours from or 2 hours, hour and a half from Milwaukee, whatever it is, depending on how fast I can go and get away with it. But anyways, say you go into a game, you pay $150 for a ticket, and you got to figure the gas. You stop and get something to eat. If you're sitting at a hotel overnight, if it's a late game, whatever. Say they're playing the Lakers. But I'm a huge Giannis fan. I'm a huge LeBron. Oh, can't even believe that's coming out of my mouth. Say I was a huge LeBron fan or Anthony Davis, and they don't play, and they don't even fly to Milwaukee for the game. It's like I just wasted hundreds of dollars for nothing, But yeah, we'll get off of that topic. And one really surprising, our defense has 19 takeaways this season. I think by the third game into the year, we already had more takeaways than we had all of last year.
Yep.
I told you I was excited about getting McKinney, and I'm not afraid to show my excitement for McKinney. I make posts about it all the time. But what are your thoughts on the defense as far as like Xavier, Jair, even Evan Williams, Edgerrin Cooper, and then kind of Van Ness and Gary kind of flying low in the radar? But I think that has to do with they're getting double teamed and they're freeing up other guys. But if that was the case, we'd have a lot more sacks than what we have now too. So I don't know what the hell is going on with those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a good point, because I think I think we've seen on the defensive side definite plus minus, right? So we completely revamped the safety room, and I don't think there's a single guy on the team that was there last year, that's there today. And at least the top three are different, right? With McKinney, Bullard, and Williams. And I think definitely you've seen that Williams play where he did the peanut punch. I forget who the offensive guy was that he did that to, but I mean, that was just a brilliant play. That's an all pro kind of play. You don't see that happen a lot. And so I think Williams is a guy that has, incredible potential. Obviously he's hurt right now. I hope he's going to be healthy, for the stretch run and all that. I think we're really have a problem at cornerback, and I think it's like a cascade problem, right? So Jair seems to be allergic to division games, right? So when he's on the field, he's a shutdown guy, right? He has actually played well, I thought, this year. when he's been on the field. But you got to show up for those division games too. 23, right? But if he's not there, then they've kind of been rotating in Stokes and Nixon, and with Nixon's at corner, then you got to put Bullard at nickel, and I my belief is we're a body or two, a quality player or two short at the cornerback position right now. And certainly if Jair's out, any length of time, I think that's gonna hurt us. So, and then on the second level, I think when you look at it, the guy that seems to have played really well is Eric Wilson.
Yeah,
Wilson
too.
Yep. And he's kind of like the guy that you kind of the forgotten guy, but I thought he's played really well. He's had a lot of impact. But Brooks is unbelievable. I'm sorry, Cooper. I meant to say Cooper. Cooper, he made 2 plays against Jacksonville, and that were just absolutely unbelievable. The strip sack of Trevor Lawrence down there with that Wyatt recovered, and then I think on the very next drive, he lines up. He's mugging in the A gap. And he goes back, and he's the guy covering Christian Kirk about 40 yards downfield, and he breaks the pass up.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I said, I don't think we've ever seen linebacking like that in Green Bay. Nitschke was a great linebacker, but he wasn't running 40 yards downfield to break up a pass. But I don't ever remember seeing one of our linebackers running 40 yards downfield, breaking up a pass to a wide receiver. That's an Urlacher, and I hate to mention a bear, but the only other guy I can remember seeing doing that was Brian Urlacher. And he's the guy that could run, that had the physical ability to be, on one play right there at the line of scrimmage, and the very next play to be 40 yards downfield. And so, I think if you look at that, and if Cooper can build on that, I know he's been playing part-time, but that's the kind of thing that we need to have, but that covers up the fact that I think Quay Walker has just been struggling. I saw one thing that he was rated something like number 87 out of 95, linebackers, and the eyes don't lie, right? So when you watch him play, and you see him make a tackle, but it's 10 yards downfield, and I don't know. I'm really concerned because when we drafted him, I had really, really high hopes for him. And it looks like Cooper is the guy that's doing, making those plays. And Quay is just a guy right now,
Yeah. And you mentioned Cooper, and I was stoked about getting him in the draft. So that game against the Jaguars, he got NFC Rookie of the Week or whatever it was.
Yep.
And then the next game against the Lions, he was like barely even out there.
Right.
Yeah, I don't get what's going on there.
I don't know. The only thing that going back to what we were talking about, Jordan Morgan, same thing. I think is that Cooper, needs to learn, right? And he's not the kind of stuff he did at Texas A&M isn't the same stuff that they're asking him to do at the NFL level. And he's up against much better players at the NFL level. So he has to learn. And I'm sure the reason he's not out there is because he's making mistakes, but when he makes a play, oh man, is it a play, right? So I think you need guys that have that ability to say, all right, we might have a few mistakes, but we can live with those as long as you're going to make the play when you're in position to do it.
So. Yeah, I think, in the end, defense wins championships. I think they're a young team. Let's say what it is. They're a young team. I think they're only growing each game as a whole. I guess I had questions in the beginning of the year. Is Eric Stokes going to make an impact coming back from his injury? I don't know. It seems like he's, always lurking around the play, but not actually like in the play. I know you mentioned, 10, 15 yards on the field, Quay's making tackles. That automatically jogs back to my high school days. I was a junior, and our senior safety he was the leading tackler on the team. We thought, oh man, you're a badass. I mean, he was a good, hell of a player. But if your safety's leading your team in tackles, that's not a good thing.
Yeah. And
No,
you know what?
40
I
years
have
later, 28 years later, you're just like, oh man, that's right. It's not a good thing.
yeah. I have high hopes for our defense. I think that what I think is going to happen is, and you saw a little bit of this. I think it was in the Houston game where they are playing Brooks a little bit at the defensive end spot,
Cooper.
and no Brooks,
Oh,
and
oh yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
okay. I know what you're
right,
talking about.
yeah. So the Carl Brooks playing at the
Upper.
defensive end spot, and then Gary, then they kind of move him around and they can move him into the inside to maybe go against a guy that may not be, sometimes the offensive lines, their weak link is in the middle, right? So they could move Gary over the center or over the guard, right? If they thought that that was a matchup that might be better, and it might be harder for them to chip him if they don't know where he's coming from. So when you lose Preston, you're automatically thinking, oh, okay, more snaps for Van Ness and more snaps for Engabari and all that kind of stuff. But I think they might move Brooks to the outside. He's got, that's what he did well as a rookie. He can move. He's a big guy that can move. So they can put him on, at the defensive end spot, and then be able to move like a Van Ness or a Gary inside into a position that he might have a better opportunity. Because you're right, we're not getting the pass rush, we're not getting it from the edge guys, but you know what? It doesn't matter where those guys rush from. So you could. It goes back to you remember the NASCAR package where we had like four linebacker types lined up at along the line, and I think that's what it might take is to say, okay, we can have Wyatt and Clark in the middle, or Slayton. We got enough big guys to put there, but the idea is in pass rush situations, maybe take out some of those big guys and put in a Gary or Van Ness, inside, and then you have a couple of guys on the outside. And the other thing too is that you mentioned is weaponizing Cooper and saying, yeah, can we have a situation where we are able to send Cooper more often, because clearly being a blitzer is something that doesn't take a lot of he doesn't have to. It's not as maybe mentally taxing or whatever as coverage responsibility would be. But I think that's going to be a key thing. Against Jared Goff, and the Lions have a really good offensive line. So, that's you have to keep that in mind. But I always think, especially against these guys that are not a Kyler Murray or a Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, guys that can kill you with their feet. I always think the pocket guys. I'm an old guy, so I go back to Al Davis with the Raiders. And his philosophy was the quarterback must go down and he must go down hard. And meaning if you hit these guys early in the game, they're going to be a little gun shy, right? And he gets into the second half, third quarter, fourth quarter, they're going to be a little gun shy. They're going to hear footsteps a little bit. They're going to maybe throw the ball a little early, or they might throw you the ball, right? Just because they're afraid of getting hit. So I really think that, the Packers, I was hoping that Hafley would be even a little bit more aggressive than he's been. And part of it was obviously they had guys like I said, they played Kyler Murray, they played C.J. Stroud, they played Lamar, Jalen Hurts, right?
Jalen Hurts.
So yeah, so they played these guys, and I get it. When you're playing them, you got to be. It's a whole different kind of game, right? You can't be throwing six guys, in a rush, because all of a sudden, Hurts will pop out the end, and then all your guys are chasing after him, when he's got 50 yards of open field there. So I get it's a little different strategy, but we're playing Minnesota, we're playing Detroit. their quarterbacks are not going to kill you with their legs. So these are the guys that you have to go out and you've got to figure out a pass rush strategy to get in there. You don't even have to necessarily sack them, although that helps. But you got to be hitting them. They got to know you're there, right? And
Right.
obviously legally. I'm not talking about a late hit or hitting them at the low like we were talking about. But they got to feel you. They got to feel that rush. They got to know that they're, that's speeding up that clock in their head about when the ball comes out, because makes your coverage that much better, right? If you don't have to cover for 4, 5, 6 seconds, if they're throwing that ball out in 2.5 seconds because they're afraid of Cooper coming in there or Gary or somebody like that. So.
Right. One thing that I saw in the Lions game towards the end, and then you're thinking about, what are we going to do without Preston Smith? And, well, obviously the defense that we're running isn't built, for him. He's more of a 3-4 type of linebacker. But I did go to the preseason game against the Ravens, and Aaron Mosby had a hell of a game.
Mm-hmm.
And then you saw Brenton Cox plot over whatever that Lions right tackle was, all pro tackle, just pancaked them and got in for the sack. Yep. So I think they were maybe coming around in practice and they figured, well, we can let Preston Smith go. Love him for all he did for the Packers. He's a hell of a guy. Yep. And next year we'll have like $61 million salary cap, which we haven't been in that position in, I don't know, probably like 30 years maybe.
No, right?
But see, like by doing that, we're staying young. We're keeping people under their first, maybe second year contracts, and we're able to make moves to get guys with the money. We're not having 2 or 3 guys just absorbing all the cap money. And I think Cox and Mosby, I think they're going to be great additions to the defense. I really do. I mean, they're young. They have to go out and prove it if they want to make more money in the league, and now is a perfect chance to do it and a perfect organization to do it for, not
this past offseason, or not this past preseason, but last 23 preseason. God, I loved Brenton Cox. I mean, he just looked like he was going to be so I believe in these guys. I think the coaching staff does. They wouldn't have a spot for him on the 53 if they didn't believe in him. And so, especially Cox, he's had enough time, and Mosby's had time too. So, I think these guys, you're right. I think it's time to put them in there and see what happens. Like I said, I'm not really too worried about the defensive line. I think they've got some good quality players. They've really revamped it in the last couple of years, adding guys like Brooks and Colby Wooden and LVN. I think LVN, people are looking at LVN, and I forget the guy. So they were asking Minnesota coach.
Crap. Can't go over an hour. Hold on. I'm here.
Okay, all right. So they were asking Kevin O'Connell about Minnesota's first round draft pick, Dallas Turner, he's only played like 20% of the snaps, and he was like a first round pick, and he was talking about and I can't think of the guy, but he was talking about a guy, I think it was Cam Hayward for Pittsburgh, that was a top pick, but it took him until his third year to really blossom. And I kind of feel the same way about LVN. LVN was a part-time player in college. And I think, you look at him and there are plays that he makes that is like, oh my God. So I think he can do it. I think obviously they need the playing time. They need the consistency and the development. But I believe in this guy. I think we're going to have a good front seven. And obviously the safeties, I think, we've got terrific young safeties. I'm just worried about the cornerback. That's the one spot on defense that I'm nervous about.
Yeah, I think we have a good defense. It's better when Jair's in there. McKinney is doing awesome. Bullard, Williams, Stokes could use some work. Valentine, whatever they are. the Valentine's Day twins. Um, I think we're gonna do good. I honestly think, and we're gonna probably go corner in the first round next year. I mean, what else do we have to get? We have all the weapons we need. What's been hurting us? Our secondary. You know, um, I think, yeah, we'll be good. It's just we gotta. I think we're at a good point to where the guys can be on their bye week, kind of look back to the first 9 games of the season, what they can fix, what they did wrong, what they did right, improve on what they can do right, and I think we'll be all good. Um, but yeah, I still think we'll go probably 11-6, 12-5. It seems like it's gonna trend that way for us. Especially, I'm not
Yeah, I
even
mean,
gonna
I
say
look at it. We have,
years.
as I was looking at the schedule.
Wonder what happened.
We got Miami at home, and Miami isn't as good as they've been, right? So I hate to just put up a W, but I mean, I think we're the better team in that one. Then we have to go to Detroit. And that's going to be a tough one on a Thursday night. Now it's not a short week because we play back to back Thursdays. So and then we have to go to Seattle. I really don't. That's what game I just have no feeling of. Seattle's a tough place to play, but again,
Yeah.
so I don't know what's going to happen there. And then we have New Orleans at home. That should be a win. Then the last two we have at Minnesota and we have Chicago. So like you said, if we're going 12-5, we can only lose two. So you got a couple of potential losses there. A couple of tough games.
You
So
gotta think positive.
yeah. I mean, I think I'm looking at it maybe more at 11-6. I think we could lose three out of those. I think we could lose. I hate to say we're going to lose the division games, but right now Detroit's a
Hey, if
better
we
team.
lose the division games and we still make the playoffs, so be it. You
Yeah.
know?
Oh yeah. Like I said, the ones I'm nervous about are San Francisco and Seattle. And then
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think one of those two division games we take. All right, and I could see us. A couple years ago we ran the table in December, and that would be hard because we had Detroit. But I mean, you look at it: Seattle, New Orleans, Minnesota, and Chicago. I think we could do that. We could win those last four. So
Right. Well, you want to do mid-season awards? Then
yes,
we'll wrap it up.
yep.
Alrighty. So for MVP, it's hard to and it's not shouldn't be hard to pick, but I have Derrick Henry, and Patrick Mahomes. I can't. This is for like the whole NFL for the season. I have Derrick Henry and Patrick Mahomes. I can't make it because you think about Derrick Henry, he's putting up great numbers. You think about Patrick Mahomes, yeah, he's probably one of the most hated players in the NFL. But he's had his team, or his team has had, or his team has been in situations where Mahomes has led them out to victory. You saw last week he had that injury, he came back in, they won the game, whatever.
Yep.
He finds ways to make his team win, and that's a valuable player, and that's exactly what the award should be for. Then you have like a Baker Mayfield and a Josh Allen too, who should be in the running. What do you think?
I think you have to throw Lamar Jackson in the mix too.
Oh yeah, Lamar Jackson. I forgot about him.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you're right. I think Mahomes has not put up the stats that he's done, but they're undefeated, right? So how do you not
yeah,
put him in the mix? And this same for Josh Allen. I don't think Josh Allen has been as necessarily as dynamic, but the team's done well, right? And right now, I think I was just looking up the stats. I mean, Lamar, 24 TDs and 2 interceptions. That's Aaron Rodgers like statistics, right? That's just unbelievable, So, and then I think the next best is Josh Allen with 17 TDs and 2 interceptions. So I think between Lamar and Patrick and Josh, I think those would be. You're right though about Derrick Henry. I mean, he has changed. I think the culture of that team. Just in the way that he's able to take over a game. And I mean, I get it. I've seen that guy work out, and you just see the way he runs, and you're like, I might have to make a business decision on that.
Well, see, and like I said, I went to the Ravens game in Green Bay, and he didn't play obviously, but the whole team came out before. They all came out. Then they came out. They staggered behind a little bit in their street clothes, and that guy is huge.
He is.
And just to see even like the Packers fans, the young kids running up to him. The reason why I got to go is because the De Pere Youth Football Program, which it's East De Pere and West De Pere, they combine their 5th and 6th graders. They have like a 3-week combine.
Mm-hmm.
All the coaches like mark down. We all had to have our own stations and mark down different traits and different, good, bad, whatever. Anyways, they gave the organization a bunch of tickets to the preseason game. So I went. I brought my 2 boys, 2 of my girls, and one of my daughter's friends. And the week leading up to the game, kids on my team that I coach in football, they go, Coach, we went to the practice. And after practice, they ride the bikes, and the Ravens are riding the bikes. And I got who was it? Number 4. Can't think of his name for the Ravens. But I got his autograph. I got Lamar Jackson's his armband or his towel or something like that. And this guy signed my Croc, and the other guy signed my Croc, and it's just cool to see like the kids growing up like as Packer fans going and just idolizing these other. But Derrick Henry's a good one. I like Derrick Henry. He's seemed like there's no bull about him.
And I know that your podcast gets a pretty global, reach. So you're not just talking to Packer fans. So I'm talking to Football Nation out there, and I'm saying it's one of the greatest things. Like you said, I went to practice. I did not go to the Ravens. I wanted to, but the whole vibe. Hours before practice starts, the kids line up with their bikes. They're standing out there in the hot sun for hours just waiting for the players to come out. And the players come out, and a lot of them, they have the same kid every day, right? So they kind of get their kid, and then they're riding on the bike, and the kid's jogging behind them carrying their helmet, and they're chatting. They're talking, and who knows what they're talking about? They're talking about kid stuff, probably like, what games they're playing and, all that kind of stuff. And it's the coolest thing. And like you said, what a great opportunity for a kid, to see these guys and to make those relationships. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. And then you have the teams come in from, when the out of town teams come in for the joint practices. I remember when JJ Watt came, and he knew all about, the bike thing. And I think he busted a kid's bike, not intentionally, but it's just a 300-pound guy sitting on a kid's bike. Right. But he was looking for it. He was all jacked to do that. And all these guys from the NFL, the Ravens or whatever team that comes in, they can't wait to do that. And I think that is the coolest thing in the world. And it's something that, I grew up in the Philly market. They would never do that. Never. That doesn't exist. And so I think it's one thing that separates Green Bay from everywhere out there. And then, of course, the players go to practice. And then when they come back and they're all hot and sweaty, and they find their kid again, and they ride back to the stadium. And for that 5 minutes or 10 minutes, however long they're on there, every time after practice, every single time I stop and I wait along there and I watch them. I'm not sitting there getting an autograph. I mean, that's for the kids. But to me, I'm watching because I'm taking that in, and what a great experience that is. And I'm watching that dynamic. And like you said, the players are giving back to the kids. The kids are idolizing. They're going to talk about nothing else for the next 2 weeks, And I just think that's so awesome. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, we practiced like half the practices, like the first 3 weeks we were at like West Pier, then the next three were at De Pere High School practice, and we were at West Pier, and all of a sudden you hear this big old, and we all look up at the sky, and it must have been the Ravens team playing because that thing was huge. It must have,
wow.
to bring in all their equipment and stuff, but it's
Sure.
just big. We all just stopped practice. We're all just like. Was watching the plane go because we've never seen a plane that big before, so it's kind of cool. So yeah, definitely, it's a hard one. There's a lot of good guys putting up good numbers this year so far in the NFL, and it's hard to make a decision because they're all doing such good things. Mahomes is undefeated, Henry's just running with his pants on fire, and
Right.
Lamar Jackson, if it wasn't for him being a decent passer and him being a weapon, Henry wouldn't probably be getting the numbers he's getting. So. As a toss-up there, I'd go with Henry or Mahomes.
Yep.
Next one is Defensive Player of the Year. I'm going to be a homer and go with McKinney.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I think if you had done this after the first 6 weeks, you might have gone with Aiden Hutchinson, but he's hurt now. So, I don't know where you go defensively. And you're right. I mean, I think I don't know this, but I know at one point McKinney was definitely leading the league in interceptions, and so that's a big. I think this is not to disagree with you, but just to say what I think is that I think a lot of times these awards go to the guy that has the most sacks. Now, if you have a ton of interceptions, and McKinney does, I think if you look at the end of the year, typically it goes to the sack leader, and I don't know who's leading right now in sacks. I don't know that information, so we'll see.
It was brought up in my last episode. I forgot who it was though. NFL South, look it up quick for us. NFL sack. I think it was Trey Hendrickson. Does that sound right? I think it was Trey Hendrickson. I think I lost him again. Yeah, I think it's Trey. I don't know, Trey. And now just type in sack leader. It's probably better, right? But yeah, it's so hard. TJ Watt's doing good.
Yeah.
Trey Hendrickson, he has leader in sacks. It's Trey Hendrickson, Dexter Lawrence, Will McDonald, then Aiden Hutchinson. But yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that if that's the case, I mean Trey Hendrickson's obviously he's been a good player for a while, but he's not a household name. He's not putting up the numbers that would so maybe McKinney does have a chance. I think a lot's going to depend upon turnovers, as I mentioned earlier, are cyclical, and that's on the defense as well as the offense. So when he was getting a turnover a game, you're like, yeah, this guy's going to be the defensive player of the year, but that pace has slowed down a little bit, and I think teams are avoiding them in certain situations. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. There's no doubt in my mind, though, that if you changed up the rules a little bit and said who was the Packers' defensive MVP, it would be McKinney, hands down, right? Hands down.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Offensive player, I'm going to go with Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue. I think he's doesn't. I think he's got a shot at 2,000. I think so.
Yeah, he's at 1,200 now, almost 1,200.
Right.
Josh Jacobs, I think, is third in rushing.
Yes. Yeah. Saquon,
One thing that
too, I think.
Saquon second, yeah. One thing I was going to mention too that I have written down here is, it's funny. And it sucks that we lost Aaron Jones, but I'm glad we got Jacobs to fill in that void. But you
Right.
look at the Vikings and their downfall is when Aaron Jones is running good, the Vikings are playing good. When they go away from Aaron Jones, they fall apart. So why would they ever think of going away from Aaron Jones late in the game and lose the game? Haven't they seen that? I'm just a layperson here watching football, and it's like I know what Aaron Jones was like when he was in Green Bay. He was the heartbeat of that offense. So when he goes to Minnesota to play the same role, and you have Jordan Addison, you have Justin Jefferson, and you have these guys, and the way you play is making them play better because when you're on the field, you have maybe two guys kind of eyeing you up to cover you when the play starts, which would free up more room for Jefferson and Addison to run. But when they go away from him and then all of a sudden the game falls apart and they lose, I just don't get like what's going on and what the Vikings are thinking, like not involving Aaron Jones 100% of the offensive plays.
Well, you know what? It goes back to the same thing that the Packers were doing the last couple of years, is that they know and their coaching staff knows that Jones only has so many carries in him. He's not going to be a Derrick Henry or Josh Jacobs and carry the ball 300 times. He's just not built to do that. So you have to figure out, are you going to run him, 200 times in the first 8 games? And then what do you have left for the end of the season? Last year, the Packers got lucky but Jones missed a big chunk in the middle of the season. When he came back for the stretch run, he was healthy and he was fresh. And he went on a heck of a run and, like you said, was the heartbeat of the offense. So I think Minnesota has the same issue Green Bay had last year, is you can't give him the ball 25, 30 times a game, even if that's what it's going to take to win. You got to put these other guys in. And, Madison's just not the same kind of guy and not nearly as productive. I think that's where the Packers have, I think, a dual edge this year is I think the Packers' backup running backs are better. And I think Jacobs is pardon the expression, a studlier, guy. He's proven the ability to be able to carry the ball a lot and still be healthy enough for to play the game. So I think that's what we got to look at. Is I think we have the ability to be when Jacobs isn't on the field, and I mentioned the drive against Houston because he wasn't on the field and they had. Brooks.
Wilson?
Chris
Brooks.
Yeah. They had him in on that drive, right? And I'm like, guess what? We can win a game when Josh Jacobs isn't in there. So that I think that's a plus for where we are. But Minnesota, and by the way, that's I hated to lose Aaron Jones. He not only was he a great player, he's a great guy, right? But at some point, Goot looks at it and says, we're going to be in this situation. It's going to be December. We're going to be, trailing, but we're going to have to catch up. And the only way we're going to catch up is if Aaron Brooks is in there running, 25, 30 plays. And, if you do that, you run the risk that he's not going to be able to go next week or whatever.
Or he's going to get hurt.
Or he's going to get hurt, right? And so that's the thing. These GMs have a tough decision to make, and the Packers have traditionally always moved on maybe a year early, right? So Jones still has a lot left in the tank. He's looked really good, but will he be good for 17 games?
No,
I don't know. Yeah, but right. So.
Speaking of a young talented individual, I want to thank him for breaking the Bears' hearts last weekend. My rookie of the year, Jaden Daniels. What? Okay, this is what I don't get. Okay, how are the coaches for the Bears not running on that field, screaming at Tariq Stevenson, "Get in the play! Get in the play!" Okay. Then maybe they weren't. But then once he turned around from yapping at the crowd to realize that the play was going on, he still was able to run to the big scrum at the goal line or whatever, the big huddle up before the jump, and he tipped the ball back to the receiver for the touchdown.
Yep.
That is what you call 100% karma, and it was
Right.
so
Right. It
good
was.
to see. And you want to know what? Maybe there were a couple of holds in Jaden Daniels escaping, but you want to know what? Maybe put some guys that are taller down in the end zone, and maybe in 2015 or whatever it was when Aaron Rodgers got his helmet yanked off and there was no flags. Maybe that's now you guys know what it's like. But I just don't see what is going on in Chicago.
Right.
It's I've said it. I'm not a big Caleb Williams guy. I never have been. I think you get these kids in college who think they're better than they are. They can go to a different program and be like no one ever knew who they were, and they expect to be worshipped all over again. And I think he doesn't get his way. He goes in those little tantrums, and he couldn't be in a better spot than Chicago right now.
Right.
But who is your rookie of the year? Sorry, that was a little rant right there, but hey, I can do that because it's my show.
It's your show, yeah. By the way, just a sidelight on that whole deal. The other piece that you look at is, and I forget who this was. It was one of the talking heads on ESPN, but they were talking about how that's not the way you coach. The Hail Mary, and this was the he used to play for the Patriots. I'm blanking on his name, but
Mitty Bruschi?
No, it was
was he defense corner?
Devin McCourty.
McCourty. Yep.
Yeah. So he was a defensive back, right? And he said every week we'd have a period would work on the Hail Mary because you don't know, but it could come up, right? So they would spend a few minutes every week working on that. And he'd say, there's a system for how to defend that. You got to have somebody back deeper than the deepest offensive guy, right? And what did you see? Like you said, it was a scrum. That's not how you're supposed to do it. There's supposed to be 2 or 3 guys that go into the scrum to try to block it, but the other guys stay back just because of that, right? Because how many times have you seen that tip? And if there's a guy back there with that Redskin receiver, when that ball's tipped, they can make once it's tipped, you can tackle the guy, right? And that's that Belichick would coach him that as soon as the ball's tipped, you tackle the receiver, right? And that's a legal play. Ball has to be tipped, right? So, it wasn't just Tyreek Stevenson. Obviously, he's the GOAT.
The whole team.
He did, the stupid shit before the stupid stuff before in the beginning of play. But all the rest of the guys, it's like you said, you coach soccer. I remember when my daughter was playing soccer, and I was never a coach. I never played soccer, and I wouldn't know how to coach it. But the one thing I did know is that in your 3rd grade soccer or whatever, the kids it's all a scrum. There's the ball and there's all the kids, right? And they're all with it. Instead, you look at the way it's supposed to be. You got one guy on the left, one guy on the right, a guy that goes down near the goal, and you try to spread it out and that kind of stuff, right? But that's what the Bears look. They look like a 3rd grade, like a 3rd grade,
Or it's like 3rd and 4th grade basketball where everyone runs up to the person with the ball.
Yes.
Here. It's like, okay, now we're to the point in like 5th grade now where we have the kids all the way around the perimeter of the basketball hoop, and then you run certain plays, you set screens, you're always cutting to the basket. If you're wide open, you'll get the ball, and if you're not getting the ball, it's because you're not open. So just find a way to get open, Yep. But yeah, and even like against the Lions when Rodgers had the Hail Mary. Why the hell wasn't Kelvin Johnson in there?
Right.
I've never take your tallest, most athletic guys in there and have them have the play in front of them so they can, instead of playing catch up, they're ahead of the play in a way, and they can go up and just swat the ball down instead of tipping it behind them, and But whatever. It's I mean, it
And then
couldn't have happened to a better team. So that's
I know. I'm old enough to remember the Chris Berman highlights where he and Tommy Jackson were in there, and every time there'd be a Hail Mary, they'd say, "What do you do? Knock it down!" Right? That's what you do. You knock it down. You don't try to tip it, right? So anyway, the guy I think you're right that the guy that will or should win Rookie of the Year is Jaden Daniels. The one guy that to me has been better than I thought he would be, especially given the quarterback situation, is Brock Bowers with the Raiders. So he's actually, I think he's one of the leading receivers, and I think they say that he stands a good chance of breaking the like having more than 100 catches for a rookie tight end, considering he's playing in Las Vegas with I don't even know who their quarterback is. Yeah, it's Gardner Minshew.
It was Aiden McConnell, isn't it? Gardner Minshew now?
I don't know. So like that's what I said. I mean, and tight end's a tough position. We obviously our guys played well last year, but they didn't get anywhere near the number of catches that that Bowers is getting. So I think that's a good runner up. But I think you're right that I think Jaden Daniels has just been terrific. And again, to your point, he was there when the Bears were on the clock. So did they get the right guy?
Yeah, they had Jaden.
We won't know for 5 years, right? But I mean, right?
We know right away the Bears got the wrong way. Let's be honest. They're a quarterback killer. 2 years ago they were proclaiming Justin Fields as the king of the North, and now he's in Vegas. Didn't they trade for him?
Pittsburgh.
They traded. He got traded.
Did he get traded?
Trade deadline. I'm pretty sure he's plays for the Raiders now.
Wow, I missed that one. Okay.
Hey Google, who does Justin Fields play for? Maybe that was just a mock that I saw then, because I could have swore he got traded.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
it makes sense though.
You have a really good point though, which is that do you regardless of what you think, about Caleb Williams, do you feel that he's in the environment, meaning the coaching, that is going to be able to help him develop? Because clearly that was a key for Jordan Love, right? Is he went to a place where he could get the coaching on what he needed to do to become a solid NFL quarterback. Is Caleb Williams in that position? I don't know.
Still in Pittsburgh. I could have sworn maybe it was just one of those stupid groups or pages on Twitter that were messing with me. But yeah, the Bears can't develop quarterbacks. I'm going to do two more, then wrap it up here. Comeback player of the year, Kirk Cousins for the Falcons.
Yeah.
From his Achilles, and now he's he's scorching the NFC South.
Right. Yeah.
And then me, coach of the year, got to be a homer and go with Mr. Matthew LaFleur. Just by what he's been doing with the team and some of the play calling. I mean, there was that one play. I don't know. I put a photo of a play that is a touchdown pass to Christian Watson. I think it was a game that he had two, and there was a one play where he made his break at the 10-yard line over the top touchdown. Apparently, before that play happened, he drew it up on the sideline, and if you go to that picture, all receivers that were eligible to catch a pass in that play were nobody within 5 yards of him. I mean, come on. I think he doesn't get the credit he deserves.
So that what I consider to be the game-winning play against Jacksonville, that long pass to Reed, was a play that wasn't even in the playbook for the week, right?
Right.
But they noticed something the way that Jacksonville was playing a similar kind of package, and on the sideline they put it in. Well, guess what? They put it in with a quarterback that Malik Willis doesn't get any reps during the week, right? He's repping the scout team. He's not repping the Packers offense. So you had a quarterback that wasn't even getting reps, and you had, a play that wasn't even in the playbook. And guess what? You look at that execution of that play, it's perfect. It's
Yep.
perfect. One interesting little sidelight that I love, the best pass rusher on Jacksonville is, I think his name is Josh Allen. I think he has a little slightly different name, but he was like a number one pick a couple years ago, right? And he's lined up right across from Jaden Reed at the snap. So Jaden Reed is the guy that's like across from him. Jaden Reed gives him a little shove. I mean, Jaden Reed's 195 pounds or whatever. He gives him a little shove just long enough because at the ball, Tucker Kraft is coming in motion behind the center. And as soon as Jaden Reed gives him the shove, he goes off and he starts running the route. Tucker Kraft is right there, and he's right in front of him. And you could see Allen doesn't know what the heck to do because it looks like it's going to be a run to Jacobs to the left, but that's a fake. And then Malik Willis is kind of rolling out to the right, and you could see the best pass rusher is kind of standing there. Tucker Kraft's blocking him, and it's like, what's going on? And then Jaden Reed's just kind of leaking out, and you see the safety have this oh no moment. And he's like, oh, like Jaden Reed just runs right by him because he's flat-footed because he's waiting for something else that the way he'd seen it on film that the Packers had been running. I guess it's supposed to be a run play or whatever, and he's standing there waiting to tackle Jacobs. Only Jacobs doesn't have the ball. Jaden Reed's running past him. He's like, uh-oh, and then he falls down. And Reed's wide open. And it's like, but all of those things had to happen for that play to work. So. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that takes good coaching, and I don't know that that's LaFleur or the offensive staff. I think it's a combination of both. But the head coach is the one that either gets the credit or the blame. Just like Robert Saleh got fired, but it's clearly he wasn't the one causing the problem, right?
He's in a better situation.
Yeah.
He died. He died, went to heaven. What can you say?
Right. I'm gonna say, and you're not gonna like this, but I'm gonna vote for Dan Campbell on this.
Yeah, that's fair. It is what it is.
Not so much because of what he does, but again, the performance of the team on the field. And they're playing really, really well. I was shocked at how well their defense have played. And that's not Dan's. The thing I think Campbell does well is he delegates. So he has, the offensive coach, and lets him go with the offense. He has the defense coach, lets him go with the defense. But Campbell's the one that's setting the tone for the whole team. So.
Right, and the bye week came at a good time too because we just picked up that former first-round draft pick, Jamin Davis. You remember that? They picked him up from...
yeah, he's on the practice squad, I think, right?
No, he was on the Commanders. And they
released him.
I think
they cut him, and I think we have him on the practice squad.
Yeah, we picked him up, like in the last couple of weeks. So maybe they can try to develop him to be effective. That'd be kind of nice.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And, one of the things right, is that just like in the first half, not everyone's going to stay healthy. So you got to have some guys, that are going to be able to come in there and play. So, yeah. I mean, the thing about Davis is that what concerns me is he was cut by who's the head coach now? Dan Quinn, right? So Dan Quinn is a defensive guy, and if he couldn't figure out what to do with Davis, I'm like, ugh. So I don't know, but he's young enough, right? And
he can be reprogrammed.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the thing. I mean, going back to Belichick, he doesn't have to do everything. They could find a role for him. Now, maybe it's a pass rush guy. I don't know, but they could find a role for him and just say, "Here, you do this." And I think that's somehow how these teams do it is they get a guy like that, especially midseason. He can't learn everything and be all pro, but he could maybe he's got I think, you know, Goot's a big one for that RAS score, the relative athletic score. And I think Davis was off the charts on that. He was like a 9.97 or something. And the thing that I noticed was he did like a 42-inch vertical jump. So I know, you know, you do basketball, you coach basketball. I mean, how many NBA guys do a 42-inch vertical jump? You know, that to
Right.
me is
It's crazy.
incredible athleticism. And it's like, okay, maybe he's on special teams or something. I don't know. But you know, a guy that has that kind of capability, put him in
They're
and see
gonna
what he can.
they're gonna plug him in somewhere to make him make an impact. So
Yeah.
that's for sure. But
Sounds good,
hey,
buddy.
yeah, well, I really appreciate it. We had technical issues to begin with, and it's kind of ironic because why I made this my background and the things and like the music that goes with it is Lindsey Sterling and it's Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. And
Yeah.
ironically enough, she's coming to Lambeau Field for what is she coming? Now she's coming to Lambeau Field for the Thanksgiving. Hold on, let me see here. Lindsay. Now that I bring it up, I should be more Sterling. This is on the fly, as you can tell.
Oh yeah.
Green Bay. Packers to welcome violinist Lindsey Sterling for Thanksgiving halftime performance. So
Oh, huh. That's interesting.
yeah, that'd be cool.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you. And uh, I think, you know, and any of these artists that get to come to Lambeau Field, I think it's a cool thing, you know. So I've been a big supporter of that, you know, getting the arts involved in it, you know. So I think you remember that, you know, I've got my own podcast. It's a whole
Yep.
different vibe. We do music, and one of the things that we did, we just recorded it. It's going to drop, I think, tomorrow or Monday. Is a, you know, tribute to Quincy Jones.
Yep.
So that's more my ilk than than maybe
Yeah.
some of the stuff that you listen to. But the interesting thing, I was having a story with some of the people I work with, and they're all younger, right? They're in their 20s and 30s, and one of the guys is like, you know, I didn't realize that all of the artists that Quincy inspired and worked with, including some of the today's artists, right? And so, you know, that's what's interesting, and that's one of the things we explore in the podcast is just the interesting connections between all these different generations of artists. Quincy Jones was making music back in the 60s with Frank Sinatra. And that's music that your parents probably listened to, you know?
Right.
And now you know, he's influencing some of today's guys. So, you know, we were saddened to see him leave, but it's interesting
Right.
he's made an indelible impression on the music world, just like Vince Lombardi made on the, you know, on the football thing. I mean, they still named the Super Bowl trophy after him. So, you know,
Right.
that's yeah. So
Well,
awesome.
thanks for the comment there, Martin. Got those great show. Go background is groovy. Yeah, you like that?
Awesome. Yeah,
Right. Well, I
good deal.
appreciate you being on. We'll have to get you back on. Probably in the beginning of 2025. That's
Sounds good.
seems to be a good time to have you back on. I think I'm booked 3 out every weekend until middle of January. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
yeah,
hopefully we're still talking football in February then.
that would be nice for sure. If
That's
not, we'll be
great.
talking about definitely won't be about the Milwaukee Bucks the way they're playing. They're what
Oh, yeah.
2-8, 2-7.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, well,
Well,
thanks a
Frank,
lot.
thanks for
Appreciate it. Where can people find you on social media?
Thanks. Well, yes, you actually, if you're interested in the music podcast, we have a couple of different things. We have our website, itsthegroove.com. We have a Twitter account, It's the Groove Pod, at It's the Groove Pod on Twitter. We have YouTube, again, at It's the Groove Pod. So, you know, we've got a lot of content out there now, and adding more all the time. And so we look forward to seeing you guys. And if you want to just talk football with me, I'm, as you mentioned, at Sproles the on Twitter. And hopefully we'll see you there and talk some good football.
Hey, look, I will put all your links in the or in the what am I trying to say here?
Show notes.
In the whatever the hell they are, the yeah, I'll have your links in the comments, not the comment section, but it's description section
I
of my YouTube channel,
appreciate it.
I'll promote it on X as well. I've been kind of
Appreciate it.
lacking there. I've been busy with basketball practices and doing dad stuff, so it's but yeah, I'll have that on there. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it, and
Thanks, buddy. I'm sure we'll
enjoy.
connect on Twitter and be chatting soon.
Yeah, and enjoy your buy Sunday.
I know, right? Take care.
Yep. See you, bud.
Bye bye.